Hello everyone, welcome. If you are someone new who came across this channel for the very first time, let me introduce you to what we do on this channel. I here discuss topic-wise questions that have been asked in different UPSC exams, that is CDS, CSC, CAPF, CISF, NDA and PCS exams. So the topic for today is Directive Principles of State Policy. Let's see our first question. Under the Constitution of India, concentration of wealth violates right to equality, the directive principles of state policy, right to freedom, or the concept of welfare. So, according to Article 39 of the Constitution, that is a directive principle of state policy, all the citizens, irrespective of their sex, whether men or women, shall equally have the right to adequate means of livelihood. Adequate means and the resources and the ownership of those resources and materials shall be distributed in such a way that it fulfills a common goal. So the concentration of wealth relates this article, that is the directive principle of state policy. So B, BPSV is your answer. Next. Which one of the following with regard to directive principles of state policy is not correct? They are enforceable in court of law. They can override all fundamental rights. They can be related to social and economic justice. They can be related to giving free legal aid. So we know that directive principles and fundamental duties are not enforceable in court of law unless government provides a law over it. Then they can override all the fundamental rights. No, they cannot override all the fundamental rights that constitute the basic structure of constitution. But they can definitely override two fundamental rights. Just tell me in the comment section कि वो दो fundamental rights कौन से हैं? The provision, the state shall take steps to separate the judiciary from executive in the public services of the states is incorporated in which part of the Constitution of India? Article 50, a directive principle that says the state shall take steps to separate judiciary from executive in the public services of the state. And directive principles are given in Part 4 of the Constitution of India. So A, Part 4 is your answer. Next. In India, separation of judiciary from the executive is enjoyed by the preamble of Constitution, directive principles of state policy, 7th schedule, or the conventional practice. Directive principles of state policy हमने अभी देखा है. So B is your answer. Next. With reference to the provisions contained in Part 4 of the Constitution of India, which of the following statements are correct? यहाँ पे Part 4 दिया है. आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि Part 4 में Directive Principles of State Policy की बात हो रही है. So parts भी आपको याद होने चाहिए कि किस part में Constitution के क्या दिया हुआ है. Parts and schedules. You should always remember. They shall be enforceable by courts. No, we have seen this. They shall not be enforceable by any court. Yes, this is correct. The principle laid down in this part are to influence making laws by the state. Yes, this is the main purpose of Constitution. So 2 and 3 are correct. D, 2 and 3 only is your answer. Next. Which part of the Constitution of India declares ideals for welfare state? Directive principles of state policy, fundamental rights, preamble, or 7th schedule? Idea of welfare state is given in Article 38 of Directive Principles of State Policy that says that state is to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of people by securing and protecting effectively as it may social order in which justice, social, economic and political shall inform all the institutions of the national life. Next. Which one of the following articles of Constitution of India deals with Uniform Civil Code? Article 44, Article 40, Article 39A or Article 41. It is the Article 44 that deals with Uniform Civil Code. please read Article 44, Uniform Civil Code, in detail this year, as this was presented as a private member bill this year in the Parliament. So more questions can be asked from this portion. Next. Which one of the following is not correctly matched? Article 39A, equal justice and free legal aid. Yes, this is correct. It was added by 42nd Amendment. It requires that the state to provide for equal justice and free legal aid. Article 40, organization of panchayats. Yes, this is also correct. It directs the state to organize village panchayats and confer adequate powers to them so that they can function as units of self-government. Article 44, Uniform Civil Code. This is also correct. Article 48, separation of judiciary from executive. No. Separation of judiciary from the executive is given in Article 50. And Article 48 is related to organization of agriculture and animal husbandry. So D is incorrect and this is your answer. Next. Which of the following is not provided for under the Directive Principles of State Policy? A. Right to work, to education and to public assistance in certain cases. Yes, this is provided by Article 41. Uniform Civil Code for the citizens by Article 44. Separation of judiciary from executive by Article 50. Participation of workers in the management of local self-government. No. Participation of workers is provided in the management of industries and not in the local self-government. So D is incorrect and this is your answer. Next. Which one of the following is not a provision under Directive Principles of State Policy? A. Right to work. Next. In which of the following provisions for the protection and improvement for environment and safeguarding of forest wildlife are found in the Constitution of India? Only in the Directive Principles of State Policy or only in the fundamental duties? So Article 48A, that was added by the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976, and the fundamental duty, that is Article 61. Both have provisions for the protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forests and wildlife. So both A and B are correct. Both A and B. C is your answer. Next. Article 46 of the Constitution of India refers to the promotion of educational and economic interests of religious minorities, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and other weaker sections, displaced persons from large irrigation project, the economically deprived. Article 46 talks about protecting the educational and economic interest of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and other weaker sections. So B is correct and this is your answer. This is the directive principle that worked as a base for reservation provided to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and other weaker sections in education and government services. Next. Which of the following concerns has found a place in both fundamental duties and directive principles of state policy? Safeguard of public property, protection and improvement of environments, forest and wildlife, respect for the rich heritage of our composite culture, promotion of cooperative societies. So B, protection and improvement of forest and wildlife is your answer. Next. Which one of the following is not a part of directive principles of state policy? Uniform Civil Code, this is under Article 44. Separation of judiciary from executive, Article 50. Duty of state to rise the level of nutrition and standard of living, Article 47. That says it is the duty of state to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living to improve public health. That gave rise to PDS system in India. D. Promotion of scientific temper, humanity and spirit of inquiry and reform. This is a fundamental duty and not a directive principle. So D is your answer. Next, which principle among the following was added to the directive principles of state policy by 42nd Amendment to the Constitution? A. Equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Participation of workers in the management of industries. Right to work, education and public assistance. Securing living wage and human conditions of work to workers. So B. Participation of workers in the management of industries was added through 42nd Amendment. Other articles that were added by this amendment are 39F, that directs state towards securing that children are given opportunities and facilities to develop in a healthy manner. Article 39A, free legal aid. 43A, participation of workers in the management of industries. And 48A, protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding forests and wildlife. Next, which one of the following statements relating to the directive principles of state policy is not correct? The provisions contained in Part 4 of the Constitution of India shall not be enforceable by any court. This is correct. Directive principles of state policy are fundamental in the governance of the country. Correct. It shall be the duty of state to apply the directive principles in making laws. Correct. Directive principles are directed in making India an advanced capitalist country of the world. This is incorrect. Directive principles reflect only three ideologies, that are socialism, Gandhian philosophy, and liberalism. So D is incorrect and this is your answer. Next, the provisions for a uniform civil code exist in which of the following parts of Constitution of India? Fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy, citizenship, fundamental duties. Directive principles of state policy is correct. This is Article 44. The questions which we have discussed earlier also are the ones that are very factual in nature. We will not spend much time on those. Next, according to the provisions of Constitution of India, which one of the following is not a fundamental duty? This is a question of fundamental duty. पर आ गया है तो हम इसको discuss करेंगे. To respect the national flag, it is. To defend the country is. To provide education to one's child is. To promote the village and cottage industries. This is a directive principle of state policy that is Gandhian in nature. So D is correct and this is your answer. Next, which of the article of Indian Constitution is related to India's foreign policy? Article 51, that is a directive principle, directs state to promote international peace and security and respect the international laws. Next, the ideal of welfare state in the Indian Constitution is enshrined in preamble, directive principle of state policy, fundamental rights, or 7th schedule. So, directive principles of state policy. We have discussed a question that is related to welfare state earlier also. Next, consider the following statements regarding the directive principles of state policy. The principles spell out socio-economic democracy in the country. Correct. The provisions contained in these principles are not enforceable by any court. Correct. So both A and B are correct. Next, in the Constitution of India, promotion of international peace and security is included in preamble, directive principles of state policy, fundamental duties, 9th schedule. Fundamental duties is your answer. Next, according to the Constitution of India, which of the following are guidelines to the Government of India for framing the laws and policies? Fundamental rights, these are rights to citizens. Fundamental duties, these are guidelines for citizens. Directive principles of state policy, Yes, these are guidelines to the government of India. Fundamental rights and duties. So C, directive principles of state policy is correct. Next. According to the Constitution of India, which one of the following are fundamental for the governance of the country? Fundamental rights, fundamental duties, directive principles of state policies, fundamental rights and fundamental duties. So, directive principles of state policy is correct. Next. This was the last question for today. If you are watching till here, thank you so much for watching. Be happy, have a nice day and a good health.